Chapter 60, Part 1 of the Book of Musical Knowledge. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Lightcrystal. The Book of Musical Knowledge by Arthur Elson. 60. How to Read Music. In an earlier chapter, the rise of notation was discussed. Here the notation of today is described for the benefit of those who wish to learn to read the notes from the printed page. The notes on the piano are named by groups of 12, called octaves. The 13th note upward from any given note, counting the given note as 1, is called the octave of that note, while the 13th note downward from any given note is the octave below it. On piano and organ keyboards, the groups of 12 adjacent keys consist of 5 black ones and 7 white ones. There is a black key between white ones except for 2 places in the group. As a result, the 5 black keys seem grouped in 2 and in 3, with a white key between the black ones in each case. The white note just below the group of 2 black keys is known as C. The letters A, B, C, D, E, F, and G are used to name the white keys. The deepest notes are at the left, the highest at the right, as one faces the keyboard. Each A is, of course, the second white note below each C, each D the first white note above the Cs, and so on. Each black key is known either as the sharp of the white key just below it, or the flat of the white key just above it. For writing or printing these notes, a staff of 5 parallel lines is used. A sign representing a letter, i.e. a note, is put on one of the lines of this staff to show the position of the note named. This sign is called a clef. Both the lines and the spaces of the staff are used, so the position of a note on one of these lines or spaces will determine what note it is. 3 clefs are used, signifying the F below middle C of the piano, middle C itself, and the G just above middle C. On full-sized pianos, the lowest note is A. This A, with the B-flat and B just above it, are known as belonging to what is called the sub-contra octave. The C's, from left to right, are known as contra, great, small, 1 line, 2 line, 3 line, 4 line, and 5 line. Middle C is the same as 1 line C. The 11 keys next above each C are described by the same adjective used for the C. Thus, we can locate any note on the piano by its name. Great F, 3-line D sharp, 2-line A flat, etc. The so-called international pitch gives 2-line C 517.3 vibrations per second, while philosophical pitch gives it 512. Concert pitch is variable, but always high. The sign for a sharp or a flat is placed before the note, the staff lines and spaces being devoted to the white keys. The sign for a sharp is sharp, and for a flat, flat. The sign for a double sharp, sometimes used, is a double sharp. The sign for a double flat is simply two flats, flat, flat. When any of these signs have been in force and are to be neutralized, a single natural sign is used. The natural sign is natural. For a single sharp after a double sharp, natural sharp is used. And for a single flat after a double flat, natural flat is used. Illustrations are now given on staffs using the three different clefs. G clef, also called the treble clef. Middle C, one line G, two line D sharp, one line A flat. Diatonic scale of C, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. C clef, also called the alto clef. Middle C, small A flat, one line B, one line E flat, small F sharp. F clef, also called the bass clef. Middle C, small F sharp, great B flat, great F, great D sharp. The F clef is now usually fixed in position, though it has been used on the third line of the staff instead of the fourth. In its regular place, it is called the bass clef, while on the third line it is known as the baritone clef. The C clef may be placed on the first, lowest, second, third, or fourth line of the staff, in which case it is known respectively as the soprano, mezzo-soprano, alto, or tenor clef. The G clef always places one line G on the second line of the staff, though in old music it was sometimes used on the first line, and known as the French violin clef. In piano music, two staffs are usually employed, the upper one, for the right hand, being in the G clef, while the lower one, for the left hand, is in the F clef. As may be seen from the illustrations, notes that come above or below the staff are notated on short extra lines or in the spaces made by these lines. The extra lines are known as ledger lines. Sometimes, when several notes in succession occur above the staff or below it, a change of the clef will save the trouble of writing many extra ledger lines. This change may be found fairly often in piano music, where the F clef is sometimes used on the upper staff, or the G clef on the lower, for a short time. The clef in use is always printed at the beginning of each line. The new clef is printed wherever it is desired to come, and when its action is finished, the original clef must be inserted again. Our octave is made up of 12 equal semitones. The use of these 12 in order forms what is known as the chromatic scale. Intervals are named in accordance with the number of semitones they contain, or the distance between the two scale degrees forming the interval. The smallest interval is, of course, the semitone, coming between E and F, or B and C, among the white keys, or between any white key and an adjacent black key. Here, a musical rule complicates matters by allowing the intervals to be named from the scale degrees. Thus, the interval from C to D flat is regarded as a minor, small second. while the interval from C to C sharp, which is really the same as the preceding one in size, is called an augmented prime or augmented unison. Octaves, fifths, and fourths are known as perfect, diminished, or augmented. An octave from D to D, for instance, is a perfect octave. From D below to D sharp above, an augmented octave. And from D sharp below to D above, a diminished octave. A fifth from C to G is called perfect, and any other fifth of the same number of semitones is called perfect. From B to F, or C sharp to G, or C to G flat, is a diminished fifth. From C to F, E to A, etc., is a perfect fourth, while from F to B, or C to F sharp, or E to A sharp, is an augmented fourth. Diminished fourths would be of the same size as major thirds, while augmented fifths would be the same as minor sixths. Second, third, sixth, or seventh are spoken of as major, minor, and sometimes augmented and diminished. From C upward to B, or any other seventh of that size, is a major seventh. From G upward to F, or any seventh of that size, is a minor seventh, while from C sharp upward to B flat, or any seventh of that size, is a diminished seventh. From C to A, G to E, or any sixth of that size, is a major sixth. From C to A flat, or G sharp to E, or E to C, or any sixth of that size, is a minor sixth. Theoretically, from C sharp to A flat would be a diminished sixth. But this would be the same in size as a perfect fifth. Browning, in a toccata of Galuppi, wrote of sixth diminished sigh on sigh, but that would be a succession of fifths in reality, and such a progression was strictly forbidden by the harmony teachers. To resume, the interval from C to E, D to F sharp, or any third of that size, is a major third, while from C to E flat, D to F, C sharp to E, or any third of that size, is a minor third. From D to E, G to A, E to F sharp, or any second of that size, is a major second whole tone. From E to F, G to A flat, C sharp to D, or any second of that size, is a minor second. While from F to G sharp, or any interval of that size, is an augmented second. Some illustrations are given below. All in the treble clef. Major second. G followed by A. Minor second. C sharp followed by D. Minor third as a chord. B, and above it D. Major third as a chord. F, and above it A. Perfect fourth as a chord. G, and then above it C. Augmented fourth as a chord. E flat, and above it A. Diminished fifth as chords. Chord 1. D sharp, and above it A. The second chord is B, and above it F. Perfect fifth as a chord. G, and above it D. Minor sixth as chords. E, and above it C. And the second chord, G sharp, and above it E. Major sixth as chords. F, and above it D. Diminished seventh as a chord. F sharp, and above it E flat. Minor seventh as chords. G, and above it F. The second chord for minor seventh is E, and above it D. Major seventh as chords. C, and above it B. And the second chord is G, and above it F sharp. Minor ninth as a chord. E, and above it is an F. Major ninth, a D, and above it is an E. The so-called major scale, starting with any one of the 12 notes in the octave, consists of the following intervals in ascending order: tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. The scale of C major is therefore C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and consists wholly of white keys. But when we attempt to form a major scale on any note other than C, we find that some black keys must be used to keep the scale intervals correct. Thus, the scale of G major needs F sharp instead of F, while the scale of F major needs B flat instead of B. The sharps or flats needed for any given scale key are put with the clef at the beginning of each staff and are known in that place as the signature. The keys needing sharps are G, D, A, E, B, and F sharp. The sharps needed number from 1 to 6 in the following order: F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, D sharp, A sharp, and E sharp, the last being really the note F. The key of G demands F sharp, the key of D, F sharp, and C sharp, and so on. The keys needing flats are F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, and G flat, the last being the same as F sharp. The flats needed in order are B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, and C flat, the last being the same as B. The key of F needs B flat. The key of B flat needs B-flat and E-flat, and so on. The keys of C-flat and C-sharp exist, but are rarely used. Any sharps or flats used elsewhere than in the signature are called accidentals. These remain in force to the end of their measure. They may affect a note held from one measure into the next. Usually an accidental is held to affect any octave of the note altered, but such octave notes should really have the accidentals written in. Accidentals should be used in all cases where any possible doubt might be caused by their absence. Examples of signatures: treble clef, signature D. Bass clef, signature E-flat. Alto clef, signature A. Treble clef, signature A-flat. Bass clef, signature F-sharp. Alto clef, signature F. Treble clef, signature B. Bass clef, signature E. Each major scale has related to it a minor scale, which keeps the same signature, but begins and ends 2 scale degrees below the major scale, i.e. a third below, or a sixth above. Thus, C major has the scale of A minor as its relative scale. D major has B minor. A flat major has F minor, and so on. If a scale is named only by its keynote, the major scale is meant. There are 2 varieties of minor scale, the harmonic and the melodic. The harmonic minor has the intervals of tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, augmented second, and semitone. The harmonic A minor scale would be thus A, B, C, D, E, F, G sharp, and A. The melodic minor has different intervals in 2 cases, according to whether the scale ascends or descends. Its ascending intervals are tone, semitone, tone, 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 and semitone. The melodic scale of A minor, ascending, will therefore consist of A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, and A. In descending, its notes are A, G, F, E, D, C, B, and A. The relative minor of any major scale begins on the 6th degree of the latter. Some examples are given below. D minor, harmonic. C minor, harmonic. C minor, melodic. F sharp minor, melodic. F sharp minor, harmonic. B minor, harmonic. B minor, melodic. The choice of a key is not made at random. On the piano, high keys are more brilliant, lower ones more solid. In vocal music, the range of the voices must be considered. In the orchestra, many instruments are easiest to play in those keys that have the fewest sharps or flats. Some musicians associate certain emotions with certain keys. Such ideas are merely individual whims, and no 2 systems agree. The major and minor scales are the ones commonly used in our music, but others exist, and are sometimes employed by composers. The Gregorian scales, or tones, have been described in the section on the evolution of music. They are still employed in the services of the Catholic Church. At times, a composer will introduce music written in these scales to give a religious effect or suggestion. The Hungarian gypsy scale has been used by Schubert, Liszt, Paderewski, and other composers. This scale is like the harmonic minor, with an additional augmented second and semitone instead of two tones. Its intervals correspond with those of a scale consisting of A, B, C, D sharp, E, F, G sharp, and A. Its effects are strongly expressive in both the sad and the fiery styles that the gypsies use. The Byzantine scale, little used in our music, has intervals corresponding to a scale on the notes C, D flat, E, F, G, A flat, B, and C. The pentatonic scale has been mentioned in connection with Chinese music. Some Oriental races have scales that divide the octave into 5, 6, or 7 equal intervals. In the modern French school, Debussy has made frequent use of a whole tone scale consisting of intervals like those given by the notes C, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, and C. This scale is not used by itself, but its effects are blended with our more usual scales. The Hindus have a scale consisting of smaller intervals than ours, such as third tones or even quarter tones. These small intervals are grouped by them into many different modes. The different notes or degrees of our scales are given certain names. In ascending order, these are the tonic, supertonic, mediant, subdominant, dominant, submediant, and leading tone, or subtonic. By means of these it is possible to describe a modulation or change of key. Our music is divided by vertical lines, bar lines, into measures of equal length or time value. Our notes are made to signify a definite length of time in the measure, according to whether they are solid or merely outlined, or provided with stems, or have on the stems little appendages called flags. The smallest notes have most flags. Sometimes such notes of small value are joined together by lines through their stems, called ties, in which case there must be as many lines as there would have been flags on each separate note. Any note may be replaced by a rest, which indicates a pause of a certain duration. The various notes, with their American names above and English names below, are given on page 521. Each note is followed by a rest of the same value as the note. 2/56th notes have been used, but are uncommon. Beethoven and others have used 1/28th notes. So-called cadenza notes have no definite value, but are grouped together by joined stems to fill a certain space as a whole. These may be found in the works of Liszt, Chopin, and others. The notes usually fill one or more measures, though it is not always necessary to compress them into exact time. The result is a free-running phrase, which the performer may take at any suitable pace. Cadenza notes are always printed in a smaller size than ordinary notes. Artificial groups may be made by joining an unusual number of notes with a slur, and placing above it a figure equaling the number of notes. This means that such a number of equal notes must be played in the time value of the place that they occupy in the measure. An artificial group usually occupies some simple fraction of a measure or of a beat. The simplest of such groups is one consisting of 2 artificial notes to replace 3 normal ones. The 2 are written in the next larger denomination than the 3 and joined by a slur with the figure 2 above it. The slur, which will be discussed later, is a slightly curved line placed horizontally, or nearly so, above or below the note that it is intended to influence. Most common among artificial groups is the triplet, in which 3 notes are played to replace 2. The 3 are written in the same denomination that the 2 would have. It is possible for a triplet to consist of 2 notes, the first having twice the value of the other, or vice versa. By artificial grouping, 4 notes may be made to replace 3. Any number of notes may be made into an artificial group, but if the number is large, it is customary to write the notes as cadenza notes, with no figure added above. The sextillet is a group of 6 notes, replacing 4 of the same denomination. The true sextillet is taken either as one group, with the accent on the first note of the 6, or as 3 groups of 2 notes, bringing an accent on the first, third, and 5th notes. A sextillet that divides into halves is wrongly written, and should have been made into 2 triplets. Even the greatest composers have been careless in this matter, and have made this mistake hundreds of times. Some examples of artificial groupings are given here in single measures. Triplets, doublet, quadruplet, quintulet, quintulet, septillet, septillet, sextillet correctly played, large group. The measure consists of a value that is determined by figures placed at the beginning of a piece, or at any place where a change in value is desired. In the latter case, it is usual to let the figures come just after a double bar line, or an unusually thick line. The figures are always in the form of a fraction, the upper number showing how many notes of a certain value make up a measure, and the lower number telling what that value is. Thus, 4/4 means measures of a value equal to 4 quarter notes. 3/8 means measures of a value equal to 3/8 notes, and so on. The fraction 4/4 is equal to unity, which would be simpler to write, but the former must be used because it implies accents in certain parts of the measure. The sign cut time, used to replace 4/4, is not the letter C, but 2/3 of a circle. In the old days, the monks held triple rhythm perfect, because it suggested the Holy Trinity, and they represented it by a circle. Even double rhythm was only 2/3 of the triple rhythm, and was represented by that much of the complete circle. The 4/4 rhythm is known also as common time. For 2/2 time, the sign for it is used, and for 4/2 time, various signs. The 2/2 rhythm is called alla breve, and the 4/2 is sometimes spoken of as long alla breve. In even rhythms, the measure divides naturally into halves, but in the simplest cases, the halves themselves are single beats. When the halves subdivide evenly, one might speak of the rhythm as double even rhythm, though this distinction is not made. Even rhythms include 2/1, 2/2, 2/4, 2/8, 4/1, 4/2, 4/4, and 4/8. Treble rhythms are those in which the measure divides naturally into 3 beats. They include 3/1, 3/2, 3/4, 3/8, and 3/16. Compound, even rhythms are those in which the measure divides into halves or quarters, and these in turn divide into 3 parts. Examples of such rhythm are 6/2, 6/4, 6/8, 6/16, 12/4, 12/8, 12/16, and 24/16. Compound treble rhythms are those in which the measure divides into thirds, and each part subdivides again into thirds. Examples of this are 9/4, 9/8, and 9/16. Even 18/8 has been used, and accented like a 3/4 measure with double triplets. Peculiar rhythms are those in which the measure divides into 5 or 7 parts. They include 5/2, 5/4, 5/8, 5/16, 7/2, 7/4, 7/8, and 7/16. At first sight, it would seem that the number of beats in a measure would determine its speed, and that the printing of these beats in notes of larger or smaller denominations would denote the pace. As a matter of fact, a 3/8 piece with a slow tempo mark might be slower than a 3/4 piece with a rapid tempo mark, but usually the smaller denominations call for greater speed and a certain lightness of style. Complex rhythms occur in certain compositions. These are made by the playing together of measures made up of dissimilar rhythms. Accents in music are either natural or artificial. The natural accents are those that come at definite times to show the rhythm of the measure. Artificial accents are those that are marked especially by certain letters or signs. In the simple, even rhythms, with 2 beats to the measure, the first beat is accented slightly. The same is true when there are 3 beats in the measure. With 4 beats, the first receives an accent, and the third another, but slighter accent. With 6 beats in the measure, the first receives the chief accent, and the fourth the slighter accent. With 5 beats in the measure, the first always receives an accent, while the secondary accent may come on the 3rd or the 4th beat, or may be absent altogether. With 7 beats, the first is accented, and either the 4th or the 5th receives a secondary accent. With 9 beats, the first is accented, while very slight secondary accents come on the 4th and 7th beats. With 12 beats, the measure is divided into 4 parts, each divided into 3. The main accent comes on the first beat, a very slight one on the 4th, a little stronger one, the secondary accent, on the 7th, and the slightest of the accents on the 10th beat. The same holds true when 4/4 measures consist of 8th note triplets, making 12 equal notes in the measure. In connection with natural accents, it will be readily noticed that most waltzes, though written in 3/4 rhythm, are accented as if 2 of their measures were really 1 measure in 6/4 rhythm. Rimsky-Korsakov has used an 11/8 rhythm, and Scriabin a 15/8 rhythm, of which the former is a 4/4 rhythm, varied by occasional bars in 3/4 rhythm, while the latter is made of 5 groups, having 3 beats apiece. The amount of power to be used in playing a piece is regulated by the use of the letters P, M, and F, which stand for the words piano, soft, mezzo, medium, and forte, strong or loud. The usual scale of dynamic marks, from the softest to the loudest, runs from PP to FF. It consists of PP, pianissimo, very soft, P, piano, soft, MP, mezzo piano, moderately soft, MF, mezzo forte, moderately loud, F, forte, loud, and FF, fortissimo, very loud. For more extreme effects, PPP and FFF have been used. Some composers have gone as far as FFFF, while Verdi even used PPPPP in his Requiem, and Tchaikovsky used both extremes freely in his Symphonie Pathétique. Such excesses are applicable only to orchestral music, which admits of strong contrasts and delicate shading. These latter directions are usually supposed to remain in force until contradicted, but to make assurance doubly sure, or to avoid error, the composer may put after any of them the word sempre, meaning always. An increase in power is called for by the word crescendo, or its abbreviation CRESC, followed by a long dotted line extending until the desired climax of power is reached. Such a gradual increase in power may be called for also by the use of two lines that start from a single point and diverge gradually to show increasing loudness. For the reverse effect, a gradual softening may be called for by the words decrescendo or diminuendo, or by the abbreviations DECRESC or DIM, followed by the dotted line of desired length, or the softening may be marked by two lines that start a little distance apart and gradually converge to a single point. An increase of pace is called for by the words più mosso. A gradual increase is called for by the word accelerando, or its abbreviation ACCEL. A sudden decrease of pace is demanded by the words meno, mosso, and a gradual decrease by the word ritardando, or its abbreviation RIT. A number of the most important terms used in music have been defined in the following chapter, and they may be investigated whenever necessary. The tempo marks, showing about what general speed is desired, are tabulated here for reference. From the slowest to the fastest, they are grave, gravely, heavily, largo, largely, broadly, larghetto, less broadly, adagio, slowly, andante, fairly slow-moving, andantino, less slow than andante, moderato, at a moderate pace, allegretto, somewhat lively, allegro, lively, fast, presto, very fast, and prestissimo, faster yet, the most rapid tempo of all. Andante and andantino are not used in their strict Italian sense. The artificial accents are those that have to be marked, and especially wherever desired. The two signs, arrow pointing upwards and arrow pointing to the right, both call for a loud accent. Either one may be used in a composition, But if both are used at different places in the same piece, then the former calls for a louder accent than the latter. Accent is implied by staccato, or by an extra stem on a note. Accent is called for by the letters SF, SFZ, or FZ, which are abbreviations of the word sforzando or forzando. The letters SFFZ, coming from the superlative sforzandissimo, demand a very loud accent. The letters FP call for a loud note or chord, followed by softness. The letters SFP indicate a very loud note, followed by softness. The letters RF or RFZ, coming from the word rinforzando, mean a fair amount of fullness without excessive loudness. The tenuto mark, consisting of a dash above a note, signifies a clinging, expressive accent. The marcato, a dash with a dot below it, implies the same sort of accent, but the note is to be slightly separated from these before and after it. The portamento, which might better be called the demi-marcato, consists of 2 or more notes under a slur, with dots over each note and beneath the slur. In this case, each note is given the clinging accent and slight separation. If only the second of 2 such slurred notes has a dot over it, the first note receives the clinging accent and is held to its full length, while the second note is lighter and shorter, almost staccato. A famous piano teacher once explained portamento to a pupil by saying, "Play the notes as if you were trying to give a legato with one finger." The word staccato implies that a note is to be shortened and given with a quick release. The staccato effect is most often called for by the use of a dot over each note that is to be so treated. Sometimes a thin vertical wedge is used instead of the dot. If both dot and wedge are found in the same piece, then the wedge calls for a more abrupt staccato than the dot. Staccato usually implies some degree of accent, and in a few cases the dot has been used to indicate accent without staccato. The opposite of staccato is legato, which means a smooth, well-connected style of playing. When the rhythm of a piece is altered, and a false rhythm substituted briefly and unexpectedly, the process is known as syncopation. The odd accenting of some ragtime music is really syncopation, though not all syncopation is ragtime. The result may be reached by several different methods. A long note may be written on the unaccented part of the measure, so that it has to be held over the place where the accent would come. Accents may be placed on the unaccented part of the measure. The accented notes may be made short, while tenuto marks are placed over the unaccented notes. Res may be written on the accented beats of the measure, and notes or chords on the unaccented parts. Short slurs may be used to connect unaccented notes with the accented notes that follow. Finally, notes may be written so that they begin on the second half of a beat and extend beyond the next accent. In all cases, the syncopation should not be carried on for a long time, for if continued too far, the false rhythm will seem to be the true one. Examples of the different methods of obtaining syncopated effects are given on page 528. The slur is a slightly curved line, placed horizontally, or nearly so, above or below the notes it is intended to affect. The long slur, extending over more than 2 notes, came originally from violin playing, in which it is used to mark the notes to be played by a single bow stroke. It was then adopted for vocal music, to show how many syllables were to be sung at a breath. In piano music, the long slur may show either the notes that make up a phrase, or a legato style. It may be used after staccato work, to show a resumption of ordinary playing, even without any marked legato. The short slur over 2 notes has some especial rules. If the notes are small, the first one is accented and held for its full length, while the second is made lighter and shorter. But if the notes exceed quarter notes in length, the second one must not be shortened. If the second note is longer than the first, the slur should be treated simply as a legato mark. In any rapid passage, a short slur is to receive only a slight accent. The slur is used also to bind together 2 notes of the same pitch, in which case the 2 are played as one. When the slur is used for this purpose, it is called a tie, and placed so that its ends almost touch the notes that are to be joined together. Any note may be lengthened by half its value if a dot is placed directly after the body of the note. If 2 dots are used, the note is lengthened by a half and a quarter of its value. Examples of dotted and tied notes are given here. 2 dots in the 2 middle spaces of the staff, as shown in the margin, are used to indicate the repeat of all or part of what has gone before. The 2 dots are always placed just before a double bar, which may have extra marks above and below the staff to attract attention. If no previous dots are found, the repeat is to be made from the beginning of the piece, but if other dots are previously found, this time just after a double bar, the repeat is to be made from that point. Very often there will be what are known as first and second endings for the repeated portion of a piece. These endings are shown by the use of long horizontal lines over the requisite notes, each line being marked with its proper figure. The figure 1 will come first, with its line, which will end with a short vertical line at the repeat dots. In repeating, everything under the line marked 1 is omitted, the player proceeding from just before the figure 1 to just after the repeat dots, where he will find a new ending indicated by the figure 2 and another horizontal line above the staff. DC and DS mean repeat from beginning or from the sign. If a single measure is to be repeated, the sign is placed in each of the succeeding measures where such repeat is desired. But if any other material intervenes, the original measure must occur again before the repeat sign can be used. In other words, the sign always repeats the last measure previously printed. A figure filling less than a measure may be marked for repeat by the following signs. The above is often used for what are known as broken chords, in which the notes of a chord are played in succession instead of simultaneously. The last of the above examples is an illustration. When a note of small value is repeated a number of times, an abbreviation may be made, by which one large note is written to fill all the time value, or as much of it as possible, and signs added to show that small notes of a certain denomination are to be repeated until the value of the large note has been filled. Lines through the note stem, or under the note if there is no stem, are used as the sign for such repeated notes, and the number of lines corresponds to the number of flags that would be found on the stem of one of the smaller notes. Examples are given here. The letters 8 VA over a staff show that the notes beneath the mark are to be played an octave higher than written. If the letters apply to more than the note over which they occur, they are extended by a dotted line, which stops at the point where the printed pitch is to be resumed. Sometimes this resumption is marked by the word LOCO, loco. The sign 8VA bassa below any note or notes means that they are to be played an octave deeper than written. But the words CON 8VA bassa imply that the notes are to be played as written with the addition of the octave below in each case. The abbreviation PED is used to signify the pressing of the damper pedal, which raises all the dampers from the strings of a piano and allows the note played to resound continuously. An asterisk is used to show where the pedal is to be released, and the dampers dropped back upon the strings. In some American editions of music, the duration of the pedal's use is shown by a horizontal line below the music, with short upward vertical lines marking the beginning and ending of the pedal's use. Incidentally, this pedal should not properly be spoken of as the loud pedal. The soft pedal is called for by the words una corda, and its use discontinued by the words trecorde, trecorde, as explained under the word corda in the chapter on the piano. Rests and notes should be grouped to follow the beats as closely as possible. With the notes, this may be done by tying the stems so as to show the proper divisions of the measure. In using rests, certain rules are followed. Thus, when the first or last half of the measure is filled by two unequal rests, the larger one should come first. Dotted rests are not often used by modern composers, though they are sometimes found. When the first two of three beats are filled by rest, one sign is usually employed, but for the last two beats in a group of three, two separate rests are required. In a measure of 4 beats, one rest is used for the first or last two, but 2 rests are needed for the second and third beat. In orchestral music, rests often cover many measures. Below is given the sign for the 4-bar rest. In connection with the other illustrations, the use of figures to show the number of bars rest is illustrated also. Embellishments consist of grace notes, trills, mordents, and turns. The long grace note is called the appoggiatura, from a word meaning to lean, and it consists of a note of small body, written before another, and blending or leaning into the note that follows it. The grace notes are not given any time value in the printed measure, but their time value is taken from the note against which they are printed. The long grace note is generally written as half the value of the note that it modifies. Some teachers give the long grace note its printed value, shortening the next note by the same amount, but this rule does not always hold. Other musicians say that the time should be divided evenly between a long grace note and the note with which it's printed. This rule, too, is not universal. If the large printed note is followed by another of the same pitch, then the grace note is allowed to take almost the entire time of the note against which it's printed. Before a dotted note, the grace note is given 2/3 of the total value. Long grace notes are most usual in vocal music. End of Chapter 60, Part 1. Chapter 60, Part 2 of the Book of Musical Knowledge. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Lightcrystal. The Book of Musical Knowledge by Arthur Elson. The short grace note, or acciaccatura, is named in Italian from a word meaning to squash, and the short grace note is literally squashed into the note after it, against which it is written. The short grace note, as stated above, has no time value in the printed measure. It is made as short as possible, and its time value taken from the note following it. Most beginners abstract the time for the short grace note from the preceding note, but this is a mistake. The short grace note is printed as an eighth note, with smaller body than usual, and a diagonal line through the flag and the stem. As the last mentioned line is the chief difference between long and short grace notes, its presence must be carefully observed. Many misprints have been made in this matter, and the pupil must be on the watch to detect them. The style of the music is often a guide, for the long grace note is slow and languishing, while the short one is crisp and bright. Examples of long and short grace notes are given here with their proper execution added. The trill is a rapid and continual alternation of any given note with the note next above it in the scale. The sign for a trill consists of the letters TR in lowercase, followed by a short wavy horizontal line. This is placed over the note to be used in the trill. A separate sign is required for each note that is to be made into a trill. If no other sign is present, the trill alternates the note with the next note above it in the scale used in the piece. But the presence of a sharp or a flat or a natural indicates that the printed note is to be alternated with the sharp, flat, or natural of the upper note. A trill is now generally considered to begin with the printed note, though von Bülow and others held that it should begin with the upper note. A trill is ended by the occurrence of the printed note, the note below it, and the printed note again, all in rapid tempo. The trill must, of course, be carried on until it has filled the time value of the note over which the trill sign is printed. Trills are usually played with adjacent fingers, though sometimes the thumb and middle finger are used. The pianist Cathy employed a so-called forced trill, in which he took the alternate notes with different hands. Liszt used a trick known as the vanishing trill, in which a softening trill is ended by the holding of the two notes, varied by an occasional light stroke on the upper note. This procedure works best when the notes are a semitone apart. in which case the beats between the two tones appear to continue the trill in a most delicate and ethereal fashion. The mordant, derived from a French word meaning to bite, is simply a single alternation of notes bitten out of a trill. The mordant consists of the printed note, the note above it, and the printed note again. The three notes played quickly, but the last one held, to fill out the proper time value. The sign for the mordant is a wavy sign. As with the trill, if no accidental is present, the upper note is the next one in the scale used in the piece, while a sharp, flat, or natural means that the sharp, flat, or natural of the upper note must be used. The accent may come on the first short note or on the third note, which is held. The Germans call the former case a Prowler or Prowltrill, while they name the latter a Schneller. Some such distinction should be made in English. The inverted mordant is called for by the same sign, but with a vertical line drawn through it thus. The inverted mordant, which the Germans call simply mordant, consists of the principal note, the note below it, and the principal note again. As before, an accidental is used with the inverted mordant when desired. The sign for a turn is as here shown. This sign has different meanings according to whether it is printed over or after a note, or what the size of the note is, or what relation this size has to the size of the following notes. Examples are given later. A turn over a long note is played as a rapid triplet before the note, the time value of the triplet being taken from the first part of the note. The triplet consists of the note above the printed note itself, and the note below it. In all turns, trills, and mordants, the largest interval allowed is a whole tone. A turn over a short note dissolves that note into a quadruplet, consisting of the note above, the printed note, the note below, and the printed note again. If the short printed note is followed by another of the same pitch, the quadruplet consists of the note itself, the note above, the printed note again, and the note below. If the short note with a turnover, it is at all important, then the quadruplet should be replaced by a quintuplet, consisting of the printed note, the note above, the printed note, the note below, and the printed note again. The same is sometimes true of a turn after a short note instead of over it. A turn after a note of ordinary or large value consists of a quick quadruplet played during the last part of the note's time value. This quadruplet consists of the note above the one given, the printed note, the note below, and the printed note again. A turn after a long dotted note, or 1 in 6/8 time, is treated in the same way as the preceding case, the note being held nearly to the end, and the rapid quadruplet finishing the note's time value. If a note with a turn after it is followed by another note of the same pitch, then the quadruplet is reduced to a triplet, by having the last appearance of the final note omitted. A turn after a fairly short dotted note is played by giving the note half its value, putting a triplet into the second half, and playing the note again for the value of the dot. The triplet consists of the note above the printed note itself, and the note below it. But if such a dotted note is followed by another note of the same pitch, then the turn becomes a triplet given in the last part or the total of the dot's value. The triplet, as usual, consists of the note above the printed one, the printed note itself, and the one below it. An inverted turn is called for by the same sign as an ordinary turn, with a short vertical line drawn through it. The inverted turn is the reverse of the ordinary turn, starting with the note below the printed note instead of the one above it. The intervals of a turn are usually a tone above the printed note and a semitone below it, but with a printed note of the third or seventh degree in the scale, the semitone above and the tone below are used. Turns with whole tones above and below must be indicated by the use of a natural or accidental above or below the turn sign. Such a turn is usually found on the second degree of the scale, as in Schumann's Novelette in F. The hold, or fermata, is placed above a note or chord to signify that the note or chord is to be held for a long time, usually several beats more than its printed value would indicate. The sign is often used to mark the beginning of a coda, so that the player may repeat a part of a piece and then jump directly to the coda. In violin music, symbol V signifies an upward bow stroke, and a different symbol, a downward bow stroke. A circle shows the thumb position in violoncello music. In organ playing, the registration or kind of stops to be used is often marked in by the composer with more or less completeness. The signs used in pedaling are as follows: arrow pointing upwards above note, right toe, upward arrow below note, left toe, sign above note, right heel, sign below note, left heel, upper arrow line, down arrow, change toes, connected to upper arrows, slide toe to next note. It has been considered advisable to add a few facts concerning chords. A chord consists of 3 or more related tones sounded together. Notes which do not belong to a chord, but happen to be sounded with it, are called non-harmonic tones. These usually occur in positions next to the proper notes of a chord. They are called suspensions when held over from a preceding chord, or passing notes when introduced independently. A major triad is a 3-noted chord consisting of a major third with a minor third above it, such as C, E, and G. The tones of any triad, from below up, are named the root, third, and fifth. A minor triad has a minor third below and a major third above, as for instance D, F, and A. A diminished triad consists of 2 minor thirds, such as B, D, and F. An augment triad consists of 2 major thirds, such as C, E, and G sharp. An inversion of a chord occurs when one or more of its notes is transposed an octave. If the root is transposed up an octave, the first inversion is formed, and if both root and third are transposed up an octave, the second inversion is formed. In the first inversion, the upper note is a sixth below the lower one, and the inversion is called the chord of the sixth, or the sixth chord. Similarly, the second inversion, having notes a fourth and a sixth above the lowest note, is called the chord of the 6/4. Thus, if C, E, G, an ascending order, is the triad used, then E, G, C is the 6th chord, and G, C, E, the 6/4 chord derived from it. When the notes of a chord are as close to one another as possible, the chord is said to be in close position. But when any of the notes have between them other notes that might belong to the chord if played, then the chord is in open position, as G, E, C in ascending order. A 7th chord consists of a triad with an extra third added above it, as G, B, D, F in ascending order. As either a major or a minor third may be added to any one of the triads, except a major third with an augmented triad, it follows that there are several kinds of 7th chords, which are described below. In harmony and thorough bass, the chords are described by Roman numerals. The first triad is that of the keynote, and the others are numbered from the scale degrees. Capital letters are used for major triads, small letters for minor triads, and for diminished triads the small letters are used with the addition of a tiny circle, like the mark for thermometer degrees. For an augmented triad, the capital letter is used with a little plus sign at its upper right-hand corner. The triads of any major scale are therefore in Roman numerals 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 with the small circle. Those of the harmonic minor scale are in Roman numerals 1, 2 with the circle, 3 with the plus sign, 4, 5, 6, and 7 with the circle. The 7th chord is demanded when the figure 7 is placed against the triad numeral. The number 7 without qualification calls for a minor 7th above the root, while 7 with an apostrophe calls for the major 7th, and 7 with a small circle for the diminished 7th. Thus, Roman numeral 1, number 7, is the first major triad with a minor third above it, to make the distance from the root a minor 7th. Roman number 5, with the small number 7, is the dominant 7th of either a major or a minor scale. Roman numerals 4, with the actual small number 7 and an apostrophe, is the 4th major triad with a major third above it. The chord, small Roman number 1, 71, is the first minor triad with a major third above it, as A, C, E, G sharp. The chord, small Roman number 7 with a circle, is a diminished triad with a major third above it, as B, D, F, and A. The chord, small Roman number 7 with a circle above it, 7, circle, is a diminished triad with a minor third above it, as B, D, F, and A flat. The other chords may be figured in similar fashion. The chord, small Roman number 7, circle, 7, circle, or any chord composed of 3 minor thirds, is known as the diminished 7th chord. All the 7th chords are subject to inversion, having 3 inversions instead of 2. Taking, for example, the dominant 7th of C, which consists of G, B, D, and F, the inversions are seen to be B, D, F, G, D, F, G, B, and F, G, B, D, from the intervals of the other notes above, the lowest note in each case. These chords are called for in harmony study by the figures 6, 5, 3, 6/4/3, and 6/4/2, respectively. In 4-part counterpoint exercises, each part is expected to have some melodic effect when taken by itself. In such a leading of the voices, as the parts are called, conjunct motion is a proceeding by small intervals, while disjunct motion is a proceeding by large skips. The melody of America, for example, is conjunct, while that of the Star-Spangled Banner is disjunct. In harmony or counterpoint, the bass part may be in disjunct motion, but the other voices should be in conjunct motion for the most part. Parallel motion results when 2 or more voices move in the same direction and keep the same interval apart. Similar motion occurs when 2 or more parts move in the same direction with altering intervals. Oblique motion is found when one part remains stationary while another part moves up or down. Contrary motion consists of the movement of 2 parts in opposite directions. This chapter should enable anyone to learn to read music by himself if he desires. He will find added information in the ensuing section, which defines certain musical terms. A student need not worry if he sometimes finds a doubtful case, for there are divergent opinions on several of the subjects treated here. But the rules and explanations given here may be taken as a guide for everything except the very few doubtful points that may arise. The end of Chapter 60, Part 2.
Chapter 62 of the Book of Musical Knowledge. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Book of Musical Knowledge by Arthur Elson. Appendix A. Important musical terms. G and sh in German are guttural. Final N after a vowel in French is very nasal. See index for other terms. A. Italian. By, at, for, etc. In English, A is the 6th note of the scale of C and the 1st note of the scale of A minor. Abbandono. Italian. With abandon or passionate expression. A cappella. Italian. In church style, that is, unaccompanied. Accelerando. Italian. Accelerating, increasing the speed. Accent. Emphasis or stress on a certain note or passage. Acciaccatura. Italian. A short grace note. Accidentals. Sharps, flats, or natural signs not in the signature. Adagietto. Italian. A tempo somewhat less slow than adagio, or a short piece in adagio tempo. Adagio. Italian. A slow tempo, slower than andante, but not so slow as largo. Ad libitum. Latin. At will, at the performer's discretion. Affettivo. Italian. Affecting, pathetic. Affettuoso. Italian. With tender expression. Afflitto. Italian. Sorrowfully, mournfully. Affrettando. Italian. Hurrying, quickening the tempo. Agevole. Italian. Lightly, easily. Agilita, Italian, agility, lightness. Agitato, Italian, agitated, restless, hurried. Agrément, French, embellishments for spinet or harpsichord. A-is, German, the A sharp. Al, Italian, to, contracts with a definite article to various forms, such as alla, allo, alle, alli. Alcuna, Italian, some, a little. Al fine e poi la coda, Italian, to the place marked fine, and then play the coda. Alla breve, Italian, originally 4/2 rhythm, each measure being equal to a breve or double note whole, now usually 2/2 rhythm. Allargando, Italian, growing broad, louder and slower. Allegretto, Italian, light, cheerful, like allegro, but a little less fast. Allegro, Italian and French, quick, lively, the usual tempo for the first movement in symphony, sonata, etc., rapid and cheerful. Allmählich, German, gradually, little by little. Alt, Italian, high, with sopranos, the octave extending from 2-line G to 3-line F. Altissimo, Italian, highest, the octave above the alt. Alto, Italian, high. In old days a high part above the tenor, now applied to the lowest female voices, another name for the viola. Amabile, Italian, amiable, graceful, gentle. Amoroso, Italian, tenderly, lovingly. Ancora, Italian, again, once more, yet. Andante, a slow, even tempo, literally going. Andantino, Italian, a little less slow than andante. Anhang, German, a coda, an appendix. Animato, Italian, animated with spirit. Appassionato, Italian, passionate, intense. Appoggiatura, Italian, leaning note, long grace note. Arabesque, arabesque, a piece with a noticeable design of tonal embroidery. Arco, Italian, bow of violence, etc. Ardente, Italian, ardent, fiery, vehement. Arioso, Italian, a short piece like an aria, but less symmetrical. For aria, see chapter on vocal forms. Arpeggio, Italian, harp-like, playing the notes of a chord in swift succession instead of simultaneously. As, German, the A flat. Assai, Italian, very, extremely, much. Attacca, Italian, attack, start, go on, begin the next. Aubade, French, a morning song, literally a dawn song. Ausdruck, German, expression. B, the 7th note of the scale of C major. In Germany, B means the note we call B flat. Ballet, French, a pantomime story with musical accompaniment. Bars, vertical lines drawn on musical staffs to mark off measures, now used to denote the measures also. Basso continuo, Italian, the continual or figured bass in old music. Battuta, Italian, a beat, a measure. A battuta, in strict time. Beat, a motion with hand or baton to give the tempo, a division of a measure. A throbbing heard when two tones are not quite alike in pitch. Bel canto, Italian, a pure and sympathetic legato, the opposite of bravura, coloratur, agilita, etc. Bemol, French, any flat. Bemolle, Italian, any flat. Ben, bene, Italian, well, thoroughly. Bewegt, German, rather fast, with motion. Bis, Latin, twice, to be repeated, continued. Bogen, German, bow of violence, etc., also a slur or tie. Bourdon, French, a set of large stopped organ pipes, a drone bass accompaniment. Bravura, Italian, spirit, skill, requiring dexterity. Break, the change between head and chest register in voices, the change between the fundamental and the harmonic series on clarinets. Broken chords, broken octaves. Chords or octaves whose notes are played in succession and not simultaneously. Buffo, Italian, comic, a singer who takes comic parts. C, the first note of the scale of C. The sign for common time, 4/4, is not really a C, but 2/3 of a cycle. Cadence, a close in melody or harmony, ending a period, section, or entire piece, usually on the tonic chord of its key. Cadenza, Italian, an ornamental solo passage introduced near the end of an instrumental piece or song. The cadenza may be written by either composer or performer. Calando, Italian, becoming softer and slower. Calmato, Italian, tranquil, quiet. Caloroso, Italian, warm, animated. Cantabile, Italian, in a singing style, smoothly. Cantilena, Italian, the melody of a song or piece, a melodious song, piece, or passage. Capo, Italian, the beginning, the top, or head. Capriccioso, Italian, capriciously fanciful. Carita, Italian, feeling, tenderness. Cembalo, Italian, a harpsichord. Ces, German, the note C flat. Chiarezza, Italian, clearness, purity, neatness. Cis, German, the note C sharp. Codetta, a short coda or extra including passage. For coda, see chapter on song forms. Coloratura, Italian, roulade, embellishments or ornamental passages in vocal music. Come, Italian, as, like, the same as. Comma, the difference between major and minor tone in the scale of nature, ratio of 81:80. Commodo, Italian, quietly, easily, conveniently. Compass, the range of notes that a voice or instrument can give. Con, Italian, with. Concertmeister, German, the chief violinist of an orchestra. Concerto, Italian, a piece of several movements for one or more solo instruments with orchestra, sometimes one solo instrument with piano. Konzertstück, German, a concert piece, a concerto. Continuo, Italian, constant, continual. Contralto, literally a deeper alto, often used to mean alto. Corda, Italian, a string. In piano music, una corda, one string, means soft pedal, while tre corde, three strings, means a cessation of the soft pedal. Sometimes due corde, two strings, calls for the soft pedal halfway down. But in old times, when piano notes never had more than two strings apiece, it meant a cessation of the soft pedal. Crescendo, Italian, a gradual increase in power. D, the second note in the scale of C major, abbreviation for da or dal. Da, Italian, from, by, through, etc. Dal, dalle, etc. are the same. Da capo al segno, Italian, from the beginning to the sign. Dal segno means from the sign. Deciso, Italian, boldly, decidedly. Decrescendo, Italian, gradually diminishing the power. Delicato, Italian, delicate, smooth. Des, German, the note D flat. Destra, Italian, right, right hand. Détaché, French, detached, staccato in violin music. D, Italian, of, with, from, etc. Diapason, the entire scale or range, a set of organ pipes running through the entire keyboard. Dièse, French, any sharp. Diluendo, Italian, dying away into silence. Diminuendo, Italian, gradually diminishing in power. Dis, German, the note D sharp. Divisi, Italian, divided, separated, used when a single group of voices or instruments is to take two or more notes instead of one. Do, Italian, the syllable applied to the first note of the scale in singing, etc. In the fixed do system, do is always C. The French use ut instead of do in instrumental music. Dolce, Italian, sweetly. Dolente, Italian, mournful, grieving. Doloroso, Italian, sadly, sorrowfully. Dopo, Italian, after. Doppio, Italian, double, twofold, sometimes with the octave added. Double, French, an old term for variation. Doucement, French, sweetly, softly. Dritta, Italian, right, right hand. Droit, French, right, right hand. Duo, due, Italian, two. Duolo, Italian, grief, sorrow. Dur, German, major, major key. E, third note of the scale of C major. In Italian, e or ed means and. Écossais, French, Scotch in Scotch style. Einfach, German, simple, plain. Empfindung, German, feeling, emotion, sensitiveness. Energico, Italian, energetic, forcible. Ensemble, French, unity, smoothness, literally togetherness. Entr'acte, French, music played between the acts. Erhaben, German, lofty, elevated. Ernst, German, earnest, serious. Eroica, Italian, heroic. Erotic, German, a love song, an amorous composition. S, German, the note E flat. Espressivo, Italian, expressive with expression. Eta, etto, Italian, are diminutive terminations. Etwas, German, somewhat, some, a little. F, the fourth note of the scale of C major, abbreviation for forte. Fa, the name applied to the fourth note of the scale in singing, etc. In the fixed do system, it is always F. Facile, Italian, light, easy. Falsetto, very high head tones in the male voice. Feurig, German, fiery, ardent. Filar la voce, Italian, to spin out or prolong a tone with a voice, to let the tone diminish very gradually. Fine, Italian, the end. Fioriture, Italian, embellishments in singing. Fis, German, the note F sharp. Forte, Italian, loud, strong. Fortissimo, Italian, very loud, abbreviated to FF. Forza, Italian, force, power. Forzando, Italian, forced, accented. See sforzando. Feurig, German, joyfully. Frisch, German, fresh, lively. Fuoco, Italian, fire, passion. Furioso, Italian, furious, vehement. G, fifth note of the scale of C major, abbreviation of gauche. Gauche, French, left, left-handed. Gefühl, German, feeling, sentiment, expression. Gehend, German, the same as andante, literally going. Gentile, Italian, graceful, elegant. Ges, German, the note G flat. Giocoso, Italian, merry, humorous. Gis, German, the note G sharp. Giusto, Italian, exact, in exact time. Sometimes it means moderate, that is, not excessive. Glissando, Italian, gliding, sliding, with voice or violin, sliding toward a tone instead of attacking it directly. In piano music, a wide key scale played by dragging a finger or thumb along the keys. Grave, Italian, the slowest musical tempo, very slow and solemn. Grazia, Italian, grace, elegance. Grosso, Italian, full, grand, great. H, used by the Germans to mean our B natural. Heel in organ pedaling. Harmony, the agreement or consonance of sounds uniting into a pleasing whole when heard together, the science and study of chords. Heftig, German, insistent, boisterous, vehement. Hirtlich, German, pastoral, rustic. Homophony, in modern music a style of melody supported by chords, in contrast to polyphony, which is melody supported by other melodies or parts or voices. Incidental music, pieces written to go with a play or drama. Innig, German, deep, sincere, earnest. Inversion, a change of an octave in the pitch of one or more notes in an interval or chord. Issimo, Italian, is a superlative termination. Istesso, Italian, the same. Janko keyboard, a system of piano keys in several manuals or ranks invented by Paul von Janko. This keyboard necessitates only a small stretch for large intervals. Kapellmeister, German, the director of music at first in a church or chapel, but now in any chorus or orchestra. Key, the lever that is moved to make the piano action strike the strings. A lever opening or closing a hole in wind instruments. A scale, the key being the first tonic note of the scale. Kräftig, German, powerful, strong, energetic. L, abbreviation for left or German linke hand. La, a syllable applied in singing, etc., to the sixth note of the scale. Lamentoso, Italian, lamenting, mournful. Langsam, German, slow, the same as lento. Languendo, Italian, languishing. Largamente, Italian, broadly, with fullness. Larghetto, Italian, a tempo not quite so slow as largo. Largo, Italian, a slow, broad tempo, almost as slow as grave. Lebhaft, German, lively, quick. Legatissimo, Italian, extremely smooth and fluent. Legato, Italian, smooth with no pause between notes. Leggero, Italian, light, delicate. Leidenschaftlich, German, passionate. Lento, Italian, a slow tempo, usually between adagio and andante. Licenza, Italian, license, freedom of style. Linke, German, left, left hand. Loco, Italian, place. Used to show a return to the pitch of printed notes after an 8/8 transposition. Lunga, Italian, long. Lustig, German, merry, gay. M, abbreviation for manu or main, meaning hand. MM, abbreviation for Melzel's metronome. Ma, Italian, but. Maestoso, Italian, majestic, stately. Maggiore, Italian, major. Main, French, hand. Mano, Italian, hand. Marcato, Italian, marked, accented. Martellato, Italian, strongly marked. Mäßig, German, moderate, moderato. Meno, Italian, less. Messa di voce, a gradual swelling and subsiding on a single tone in singing. Mestoso, Italian, sadly. Metronome, a device invented by John Melzel in 1815, in which a weighted rod, projected upward, swings from side to side in regular time to mark the beats of the measure. The rate may be varied by a movement of the weight. Figures are placed on the rod indicating where the weight should be to obtain any desired number of beats per minute. Composers sometimes mark their pieces with a metronome mark, that is, a figure and a note of definite value showing that the piece must be played so as to sound that number of notes of the given value in a minute. Mezzo, Italian, the middle, half. Mi, Italian, a syllable used for the third note of the scale in singing, etc. Minacciando, Italian, threateningly. Misterioso, Italian, mysteriously. Mit, German, with. Moderato, Italian, moderate tempo between andantino and allegretto. Moll, German, minor. Molto, Italian, much, extremely, a great deal. Morendo, Italian, dying away gradually. Mosso, Italian, movement, motion, speed. Moto, Italian, motion, movement. Nachdruck, German, emphasis. Nicht, German, not. Noël, French, a Christmas song, derived from nouvelle, tidings. Non, Italian, not. Obbligato, Italian, a passage of such importance that it is obligatory and cannot be omitted, sometimes a solo passage. Octave marks 8 VA and 8 VA bassa. When 8 VA is put over a note, the note is to be played an octave higher. A line extending from the 8 VA shows that all notes under the line are to be played an octave higher. 8 VA bassa, placed under a note or notes, transposes an octave downward. Ohne, German, without. Organ point, see pedal point. Ossia, Italian, or. Ostinato, Italian, obstinate, continual, unceasing. U, French, or. P, abbreviation of piano, meaning soft. Abbreviation of pedal. Parlando, Italian, in a speaking or declamatory style. Partitur, German, a full score. Patetico, Italian, pathetic. Pedal point, a sustained pedal or bass note over which are varying chords and harmonies. Perdendosi, Italian, decreasing in power, dying away. Piacere, Italian, pleasure. A piacere, at pleasure, as desired. Piangendo, Italian, plaintively, sorrowfully. Pianissimo, Italian, very soft, abbreviated to PP. Piano, Italian, soft. The name piano, as applied to the instrument, comes from the gravicembalo con piano e forte, meaning a keyed instrument with both soft and loud tones. Più, Italian, more. Plus, French, more. Poco, Italian, little, a little. Poco a poco, Italian, little by little. Poi, Italian, then, after that, next. Polyphony, music that is composed of parts or voices which support one another, in contrast with homophony, which is melody supported by chords. Ponticello, Italian, the bridge of a violin or other stringed instrument. Portamento, Italian, the carrying over of one note into the next, so rapidly that the intermediate notes are not defined. In piano music, 2 or more notes under a slur with dots above them. The notes to be played with some emphasis and separated slightly. Prestissimo, Italian, extremely fast as possible, the quickest tempo in music. Presto, Italian, very rapidly, quicker than any tempo except prestissimo. Primo, Italian, principal, first. Quadrat, German, the sign for a natural. R, abbreviation in English or German for right. Rallentando, Italian, making the tempo gradually slower. Re, Italian, the syllable used in singing, etc. for the second note of the scale. Recht, German, right, right hand. Registration, the combination of stops in organ playing. Rinforzando, Italian, reinforced, accented. Risoluto, Italian, resolute, bold. Ritardando, Italian, retarding, delaying the time gradually. Ritenuto, Italian, retained, kept back, more slowly. Roulade, French, a florid vocal phrase. Rubato, Italian, a style of playing in which one note may be extended at the expense of another for purposes of expression. Sanft, German, soft, mild. Sans, French, without. Scale, A series of tones comprised within an octave. The chromatic scale on our pianos consists of 12 equal semitones. By choosing intervals that have sometimes one semitone and sometimes two, a whole tone, the diatonic scale is made. See chapter on How to Read Music. Scherzando, Italian, jestingly. Scherzo, Italian, a jest or play, a piece of lively tempo and jesting style, often in triple rhythm. Schleppend, German, dragging, drawling. Schnell, German, quick, rapid. Sciolto, Italian, light, free. Scotch snap, the 16th note followed by a dotted 8th note. Se, Italian, if. Segno, Italian, a sign. Segue, Italian, it follows, now follows. Sehr, German, very. Semplice, Italian, simple, in a pure style. Sempre, Italian, always, constantly. Senza, Italian, without. Sforzando, Italian, forced, accented, abbreviated to SF. Si, Italian, the syllable used to denote the 7th note of the scale. Signature, the sharps or flats necessary to give the key used for a composition. These are put at the beginning of each staff. Sino, sin, Italian, to, toward, as far as. Smorzando, Italian, dying away. Sol, Italian, the syllable denoting the 5th note of the scale. Sopra, Italian, above, over, before. Sostenuto, Italian, sustaining the notes to their full length. Sotto, Italian, under, below. Spianato, Italian, smooth, even, legato. Spiccato, Italian, separated, detached, a semistaccato for violin obtained by brushing the strings lightly with a bow and lifting it off quickly. Spirito, Italian, spirit, fire, energy. Staccato, Italian, detached, separate, notes made as short as possible. Stresso, Italian, the same. Stringendo, Italian, hurrying, accelerating the tempo. Subito, Italian, suddenly, immediately. Sul, Italian, upon, near. Tanto, Italian, so much, as much, too much. Tedesco, Italian, German, in German style. Temperament, the division of the scale into semitones. We have equal temperament, but before that, in the 17th century, musicians used a compromise with the scales of nature called mean temperament. Tempo, Italian, time with regard to speed, the pace at which a composition is to be played. Tenerezza, Italian, tenderness. Tenuto, Italian, held, sustained for its full time. Tessitura, Italian, the location of a majority of tones in a piece or song. Ti, a syllable sometimes used for the 7th note of the scale in place of si, which is too sibilant. Timbre, French, quality of tone. Time, properly used for the rhythm of a piece, that is, the number of beats in a bar, as 3/4 time, 9/8 time, etc. But it is safer to use the word rhythm instead of time to avoid confusion with tempo. Tonart, German, scale, mode, key. Toujours, French, always. Tranquillo, Italian, tranquil, calm. Tremolo, Italian, a trembling or quavering, the rapid repetition of a note. Tristezza, Italian, sadness, pensiveness. Troppo, Italian, too much. Turca, Italian, in Turkish style. Tutto, Italian, all, the whole. Umore, Italian, humor, playfulness. Uno, una, Italian, one, an. Ut, the syllable used by the French in instrumental music instead of do to designate the first note of the scale, or si. Veloce, Italian, swiftly. Vibrato, Italian, recurrent swells and subsidences in a tone. Vivace, Italian, a brisk animated tempo. Voce, Italian, the voice. Vorspiel, German, a prelude, one of Wagner's preludes with which he replaced the operatic overture. Wenig, German, little, a little. Zart, German, gently, tenderly, softly. Ziemlich, German, somewhat, rather. Zierlich, German, graceful, neat. Zögernd, German, retarding, hesitating. End of chapter 62. Read by AliceStein. End of the Book of Musical Knowledge by Arthur Elson.